Assalamu alaikum guys, my name is Usman Rao and I will discuss about the field of agriculture. So agriculture is the science and art of cultivation plant and livestock. Agriculture was the key to rise the unhealthy human civilization under which the cultivation of breeding species saved food so that people could live in cities. The history of agriculture began thousands of years ago. After collecting wild cereal that started at least 1,05,000 years ago, newborn farmers began planting them about 11,500 years ago. Pigs, sheep, and cattle were raised more than 10,000 years ago. The plant were cultivated independently in at least 11 regions of the world. In the 20th century, large-scale monopoly-based industrial agriculture dominated agriculture production. Although in the 21st century about 2 billion people depend on agriculture, the modern agriculture sector plant grow agriculture chemicals such as pesticides and fertilizer and technological advance have accelerated production while causing widespread environmental and environmental damage. Breeding and modern method of animal husbandry have similar increased meat production, but it has raised concern about animal welfare and environmental damage. Environmental issues include global warming, the reduction of aquifers, deforestation, antibiotic resistance, and the contribution of growth hormone to industrial meat production. Genetically modified organisms are widely used, though some are banned in some countries. Important agriculture products can be grouped extensively into food, fiber, fuel, and raw materials, such as rubber. Food classes include cereals, vegetables, fruits, oil, meat, milk, fungus, and eggs. More than one-third of the world workers are employed in agriculture, just after the service sector. Although the number of agriculture workers in developed countries has declined significantly over the countries. Calligraphy and scope. The word agriculture has long been associated with Latin agriculture in Central English, in which the agar form, which is turned, came from Greek, and cultura, cultivated or growing. But human activity refers certain species of ants, termites, and ambrosia beetles. Agriculture is defined with different scope, using natural resource in its broadest sense to produce commodities that include food, fiber, forest products, horticulture crops, and their relative service. As it is defined, it includes cultivable agriculture, horticulture, animal husbandry, and forestry. But horticulture and forest are particularly excluded. History. Starting point. Center of origin as Nikolai. Counted in 1930. Area Tigray is no longer recognized as a hub, and Papua New Guinea region P organized has recently been identified. The development of agriculture enabled the human population to grow many times more than hunting and gathering. The development of agriculture enabled the human population to grow many times more than the hunting and gathering. Agriculture started independently in different parts of the world, and at least 11 separate centers covered different types of taxes. At least 10 lakh and 5,000 year ago, wild grains were collected and eaten. About 11,500 years ago, the Levant had cultivated 8 Neolithic founder crops, emerald and akined wheat, hulled barley, beans, lentils, bitter wheat, pottery and flax. Rice was reigned between 11,500 and 6,200 BC, with an earlier civilization of 5700 BC with mung beans, soy and azuki beans. In Mesopotamia, sheep were raised 13,000 to 11,000 year ago. About 10,500 year ago, wild turf was cultivated in modern Turkey and Pakistan. Pig production has appeared in Eurasia, including Europe, East Asia and Southwest Asia, where the wild pig was raised. About 10 cocoa, alpaci and gourd pigs, sugarcane and some roots vegetables were reared in New Guinea about 9,000 years ago. Georgia was raised 7,000 years ago on the coast of Africa. Cotton was raised in pure 5,600 years ago and raised freely in Eurasia. In Mesoamerica, wild was born 6,000 years ago in Mesa. Scholars have made several assumptions to explain the historical origins of agriculture. Study of the transition from hunter-gatherers to agrarian societies and indicates an earlier period of aggravation and increased unrest. Examples of this are Neotrophical culture in Levant and earlier Chinese Neolithicism in China. After that, the wild stands that had been cut before started planting and gradually reared. Civilizations. Agriculture, scenes of grape shop, grain harvesting, digging, tree cutting and plowing from ancient Egypt. The Tomb of Thom, 15th century BC. In Eurasia, the Samaritans began to leave cows about 8000 BC, depending on the rivers of the Dajla and Euphrates and the canal system for irrigation. 3000 BC, shakes in pictures settling occurs in 2300 BC. Farmers cultivated wheat, barley, vegetables such as lentils and onion, and fruits including dates, grapes, figs. Ancient Egyptian agriculture relies on the Nile and its seasonal floods. After 10,000 BC, farming began in the present period. At the end of Paleolithic, industrial crops such as flax and papyrus as well as nutrient crops were wheat and barley grain. In India, the wheat which was raised by Job 9000 BC will soon be the goat. In Maharashtra culture, cattle, sheep and goat were raised in 8000 and 6000 BC. Cotton was cultivated in 4th century BC. Archaeological evidence points to an animal hunting hull. In the Indus Valley civilization dating back to 2500 BC in China, from the 5th century BC, the country had a large grain system and extensive silk cultivation. Water-borne grain mills were used in the 1st century BC and then irrigates. By the end of the 2nd century, heavy plows were manufactured with iron plates and rocks. it spread west across Eurasia. Asia rice was raised 8,200 to 13,500 years ago, which depends on the estimate of the molecular clock used. Large grain, including wheat, gained barley as well as vegetable, including peas, beans, and olives. Sheep and goats were kept mainly for milk product. In the United States, the crops grown in Mesoamerica, except including squash, beans, and cocoa. Cocoa was raised by Mayo Chani chief of Upper Amazon about 3000 BC. Turkey may have been raised in Mexico or the American Southwest. The Aztecs developed irrigation system, built roof, terracotta, dug and their soil, and built chimpanzees of artificial island. Mayas used a wild canal and field system to build swamp field from 4000 BC. Cocoa was raised in Andes such as peanut, tomatoes, tobacco, and pineapple. Cotton was raised in Peru about 3500 BC. Animals including lambs, alpacas, and goina pigs were raised there. In North America, native breeds of eastern peats such as sunflower, tobacco, squash, and podium. Large foods including wild rice and maple sugar were cut off. The domestic pet strawberry is a hybrid of Chilean and North America breeds developed by breeding breeds in Europe and North America. Residents of the southwest and northwest of the Pacific used to do fire environment that maintain low density agriculture. A kind of wild permit, a companion planting system called the Three Sisters, was developed in the Great Plains. The three crops were squash, corn, and legumes in winter.